I had a couple questions recently about how I shoot and color grade my videos, and so in this video I'm going to just show my simple setup for filming all of my tech review videos and some of the gear and equipment I use to make it happen. My rig is built around the Sony a7 IV using the XLR top handle, and I'm using this with a SmallRig half cage and an adapter plate that allows it to be attached to the top. You can also use the XLR K3M if you don't want to use a cage top handle, but I really like the way that the top handle gets fully attached so you don't have to worry about the shoe coming loose while you're recording audio. So for all my audio, I'm running XLR out, and I'm using this iFootage arm as a way to boom my microphone right over me. I'm using the Audio-Technica AT875R. This is a really cheap microphone that I want to upgrade at some point, but so far it's getting the job done great for me. And just by having it as close to my face as possible, I'm able to get really crisp sounding audio. The rest of the setup is honestly pretty simple. I'm using the Sony 24mm f1.4 G Master lens. I just like this because it makes the background look really good and blurry, gives great shallow depth of field, works great in both full frame and autofocus mode. I'm using an Atomos Ninja 5 mounted on this iFootage boom arm, and I just like having this because I record to an SSD on the back of it. I'm mostly using internal recording on the a7 IV. I'm shooting in XAVC-S using 10-bit color, and I just use the standard profile on the Sony a7 IV. To me, the thing that helps me get really good video quality is my lighting, and I've spent a lot of time working on lighting. I'm currently using this Amaran 60DS, and even at 28%, it's plenty bright for me because I'm shooting at f1.4. I've just got it on a C-stand that I have sandbagged. I also attach this iFootage arm to it as well so I can boom my mic just out of frame and get really good sounding audio without having to wear a lav mic. I like the lantern because it gives you light in all directions, so it prevents me from having shadows on the back of my wall. The other thing that's really important to me is having good backlighting. I tried to do some filming without backlighting, and it just kind of ended up having a flat, bland look. So I'm using these Nanlite Pavotube T87Xs. They're really good for the money. I think they're around $100 each, and it's hard to beat them on the price. Unfortunately, they're a little frustrating to use because you have to use these spigot adapters to make them fit on floor stands. I feel like I can never make them level, and all the buttons are on the bottom, so I'd really love to get some of the Amaran lights. That way I can use the Sidus Link app to control everything. I've also got a couple of these Govee floor lamps that I really like to use just to give a little bit more background light. Another recent addition is the Aputure MT Pro. I've just been setting this right behind me, using the grid on it just to give a nice directional rim light for my back. Again, just to add a little bit more pop to all my shots. I tend to run this either at 5600 kelvins or I'll just run it at blue light sometimes. On the back of my desk, I've mounted this Philips Hue gradient light, and I've really liked how it's just given me such a great bias light behind my monitor. It also just looks really cool on the back wall. I usually just set it to match whatever my Mac background is. So that is my simple video rig I use to shoot all my talking head videos for YouTube. It's all built around the Sony a7 IV, the Atomos Ninja 5 for monitoring, an Audio-Technica AT875R for audio, and the Sony XLR top handle mounted on top using a SmallRig cage and plate adapter. I shoot a lot of my B-roll at my desk too, and then I'm just able to shoot it all right there. Or I also have this table over here, and I'll just turn the light. There's my overhead rig. I have a full video about how that's built, and I'll just put my product over here in order to show it off and just get some close-up shots with a nice clean background. Typically, once I get my footage into Final Cut, I like to start with an adjustment layer. So I'll just put that on top of all the footage so I can see what it's going to look like. And then once I get the adjustment layer on, I usually just go in and I put the color board on by going up here. Also turn on the scopes. So what I like about the scopes is you can see where the brightest points are, and you can also see where the lowest shadows are too. So you can use this as a great way to just start adjusting your image. So a lot of times I'll bring the blacks down a little bit, and I'll also bring the whites down a little bit since I'm using so many bright lights in the background. And then I'll use the mid-tones as a way to just bring out the middle a little bit more and just to make my image a little bit clearer. Once I get that done, I usually go and I add the color curves, and I like to go to the Luma and grab that little color picker, and I usually just find the brightest spot on my head where the light is just right up against me, and I'll usually grab that and bring it down just a smidge just to smooth out some of the brighter hot spots on the skin tone. So again, it's a pretty subtle difference. You'll also see it smooths out some of the brighter spots on the lights too. One other thing I'll usually do, sometimes I forget this, but with using all the bright lights, I like to put a broadcast safe filter on because I've had some issues with not using this and then my highlights are clipping. And sometimes on YouTube with some displays that can cause some issues. So I'll just turn that on. That's with no broadcast safe and that's with the broadcast safe. So you really can't even see the difference of it, but it just makes a little bit more of a subtle difference. Finally, the last thing I'll do is if I'm having any issues with the skin tone, or if I just feel like I got my white balance wrong, I'll go on to color wheels and I'll add this because you can use this to shift the temperature one direction or the other if you need to make any subtle or big differences. I think here, if I warmed it up, that doesn't look right. I shot with it at 5600 kelvins on my camera. I'm going to make it just slightly cooler, I think. You can also adjust the tint, so if you're having issues with the tint being too purple or green, you can take it the other direction. Again, I feel like what I did on the camera worked pretty well. I usually set the white balance on my camera before shooting. I'll either use a white piece of paper or I'll just go by whatever the light says it's supposed to be. So if it's a 5600 Kelvin light, I'll put the light at 5600 kelvins. On the A7 IV, I'm not shooting with any picture profile. I just use the standard. It's what most of the other people that I really appreciate on YouTube use. And I mess with S-Cinetone a little bit and it looks cool, but it just didn't have the most natural look to me. So I just go with a standard color profile and make these couple of changes on the adjustment layer to get my final image. So this is what it looked like out of camera. This is what it looked like after just a little bit of adjustment. Again, pretty subtle. Just take some of those bright spots off the face, levels it out just a little bit. If you're interested in any of the gear that I've showed off in this video, I have links for all of it in the description below. Also, if you have any questions, leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer them. Give this video a like, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming content.